Hello, thank you for joining me. My name is Dr. Chris Bessent. I've been a veterinarian for over 30 years and have treated tens of thousands of veterinary patients. Today I'm going to share with you how to curate the bowl for a healthier dog. What I'm going to share first is the basics. What should be in every dog's bowl? And then, because every dog is so unique, I'm going to tell you how you can curate the bowl for your dog, including how that changes as your dog changes. To help you curate the bowl, Herb Smith has put together a short quiz. You'll share more about your dog and their needs, and you'll get a personalized recommendation so you can get started curating the bowl for them. What you put in the bowl can have huge benefits or implications for your pet. Whether you're feeding a balanced raw diet, a complete and balanced kibble, or somewhere in between, food is just the beginning to have a profound impact on your pet's health. You have to understand what is the nutritional foundation of complete and balanced standard offers, and then we build on that. So what is complete and balanced? Complete and balanced makes it seem like in that bag of dog food that sitting in your closet, that it has everything your dog needs. So it's complete, it has everything, and it's balanced, and that you don't need to add anything more to their bowl. And that's absolutely not true. Complete and balanced is kind of the bare minimum. It is the amount that can keep a pet alive, but it doesn't take into account many things like antioxidants and phytonutrients, but it does take into account all the macronutrients, which are things like protein and fat and fiber and moisture. And absolutely, to sustain health, you need certain levels of protein and fat and fiber. And that is the complete and balanced for macronutrients, but then it also needs to be complete and balanced for micronutrients. And micronutrients are vitamins and minerals. And so you see those towards the end of the ingredient deck because they're in smaller quantities. So complete and balanced really means it has an adequate amount of macronutrients and micronutrients. So it has adequate levels of protein, fat, fiber, and moisture, and adequate levels of vitamins and minerals that can sustain life, but it doesn't mean that they're thriving. So there's so many things that you need to add to their bowl that will allow them to most replicate what a natural diet would be and provide them with all the phytonutrients and antioxidants and healthy bacteria that they really need. So the idea that that bag of brown kibble has everything your dog needs is not 100% true. There are things that your dog needs to thrive and to live a healthy life that are not considered in that idea of complete and balanced. And that is phytonutrients like glucosamine and chondroitin and things that are great for their joints, antioxidants, which we absolutely need antioxidants in our diet, and so do our dogs, and healthy bacteria as well. And let's get into each one of those and really talk about why they're so important for health and how you can curate the bowl, how you can make sure that your dog has the proper amount of macro and micronutrients, but also has all of the other components that they need as well. What we see in veterinary medicine, without a question, is that the majority of dogs and cats kind of replicate what happens in humans. So humans tend to eat things that are in the center of the grocery store. So shelf-stable food filled with trans fats, really hard carbohydrates, and they're kind of zero nutrition food. So they provide energy. So you get fat and the dog gets fat or the cat gets fat, but it doesn't have a lot of nourishment in it. So in general, what we see in humans, as well as we see in our pets, is that we're overfed, but we're undernourished, meaning that dog and cat are not just a fat cat. Those are dogs and cats that are eating a lot of energy and eating a lot of carbohydrates, but are not getting the nutrients that they need. And what happens when you're doing that for a long period of time, it really starts to affect their nutrition. So, and we see it as a greater impact in larger dogs. So that's why we see so many nutritionally based chronic diseases in the giant breeds. So Great Danes and Wolfhounds and things like that. That nutritional abuse gets worse when you have a larger animal that is so dependent on it, as well as it becomes almost more abusive. So when we compare what happens in humans to what happens in pets, it really mirrors itself. So for example, the first 6 most common diseases in humans and in pets are exactly the same. So obesity is a huge issue in people, and so is obesity a huge issue in pets as well. Arthritis, absolutely, and we'll talk more about that as we move through the webinar. Chronic GI issues, amazing how many GI issues that we see in our pets, just like we see IBD in humans. Heart disease, because we're not providing enough taurine and enough of the nutrients. Diabetes, because we're giving them way too many carbohydrates. Certainly cancers, because not only is the food containing carcinogens, but it also, if you're not providing antioxidants, you're not getting rid of things that are damaging cells. So just to note that what happens in pets happens in humans, absolutely happens in pets as well. Poor nutrition and lifestyle lead to a poor quality of life, as well as a shorter lifespan. And we've kind of come to the point of accepting that and saying that that is possible. So what's really missing in our pets' diets? So we're feeding some sort of a food that's complete and balanced. The number one thing that's missing is joint protectants. And that is glucosamine and chondroitin and hyaluronic acid and collagen. And if you went back to the way a dog should eat or a cat should eat, is they should catch that prey and they would eat it all. So they would eat the skin and the bones and the cartilage and the joint fluid and the organ meat. They would eat that all. And they would get glucosamine and chondroitin from the cartilage covering of the bone, because they're eating the bones as well. They would get the hyaluronic acid from the joint fluid within the joints, and they would get collagen from the tendons and the ligaments within that prey. But what happens in normal food production? So, because most people are not feeding small prey to their pets, we're relying on either a kibble or freeze-dried or home-cooked. But we kind of have to go back to the nitty-gritty and what goes on in food production. So let's go back to if an animal is being slaughtered in a human food or modern food production, where they're kind of taking apart that food-producing animal. So let's say it's a cow. They're taking apart that cow, and they're removing the muscles and the tenderloins and the ribs, and they're all the food that humans like to eat. And then they're trying to get as much of it as they can to make the most use of that animal. Unfortunately, the cartilage of bones is probably one of those things that is not actually being harvested as well as it should. So you see this beautiful picture of bones and that brilliant, smooth porcelain surface of the joints that you can see on these bones. That's cartilage, and that cartilage is really high in glucosamine and chondroitin, and when a dog eats that, they're nourishing their joints. Well, what happens in modern food production is everything, all the meat is taken off, and then the bones are disposed of. So those go into a giant dumpster essentially, and it goes off to be made in some sort of meat and bone meal. The ideal would be if we popped all those cartilage endings of the bones and collected those and fed them to our animals. That would be a great source of glucosamine that would nourish your joints. Unfortunately, that's really time consuming and difficult to do, and in modern food production, we don't do that. So what we see is if you're feeding a kibble, you're not going to get the amount of glucosamine and chondroitin that dog needs from the kibble because they are not popping that cartilage off and putting it into the food. Now, if you're feeding a raw diet and you're feeding some fresh bones and those fresh bones have cartilage endings, you're absolutely adding to what they should normally get. So if you're feeding a kibble, you absolutely need to add some chondroprotection. So you need to add some glucosamine, some chondroitin, some hyaluronic acid to your dog's food. And whether it's in a supplement like a soft chew, that's great, or a powder that you put on their food, but you have to add it back. If you're feeding a raw diet, it's still important that you either add a substantial amount of cartilage to their diet or you add a supplement as well, because you'd have to feed a fair amount of cartilage to really get the amount that they need every day. And when should you start using chondroprotectant? You should start providing glucosamine to your dog from the time they start eating healthy food or real food. So from the time they're not nursing anymore and they're eating a puppy food, you absolutely need to give them some glucosamine source. And you should absolutely do it throughout their entire lifespan. Because if they were in nature and they were eating that small prey, they would be supplementing their diet every day with the glucosamine that they need. So this idea of waiting to give dogs glucosamine when they're older and they have arthritis is really way behind the ball. You need to give this nutrition every single day from the time they're eating healthy food. So number one is all pets, no matter what their diet is, has to get some glucosamine, chondroitin, hyaluronic acid, things that are going to nourish their cartilage. And you can get that in a supplement form. What else is missing from a complete and balanced diet? The second thing that I'd really like to talk about is healthy bacteria. And we need to add bacteria, healthy, good bacteria, back to our dog's diet and curate their bowl with healthy bacteria for a number of reasons. But the number one reason is that the FDA, and rightly so, has a zero tolerance for any bad bacteria. So zero tolerance for Salmonella, E. coli, and Listeria. And of course, we would all agree with that. But we're all feeding our pets, for the most part, some packaged, pre-processed pet food that has no bacteria. So it doesn't have good bacteria and it doesn't have bad bacteria. So all pet food that can be put onto the market and sold to pet parents has to go through some sort of a kill step. And that kill step is to kill any pathogenic or bad bacteria. So it needs to be heated to at least 165 degrees Fahrenheit. And most of the time when you're making a dry kibble, it's way up in the 200, 300, 400 degrees Fahrenheit, so really high heat. Raw food diets oftentimes do high pressure pasteurization, where they take the meat and put it under a pressure of about 85,000 pounds per square inch of pressure, and that pressure kills any bacteria, good or bad. And then some of the lower end, not good dog foods at all, will use irradiation. But the bottom line is the whole pet food industry needs to produce a food that does not have pathogenic bacteria. And unfortunately, kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, it also gets rid of any healthy bacteria. And as you've been hearing about the gut microbiome and that bacteria in our gut is super important, it really is, because the bacteria in our gut not only helps to digest, but it produces healthy vitamins. It is absolutely necessary as a competitive inhibition against pathogenic bacteria or bad ones. So if you're fed your dog of food, or more likely here for a dog, they would eat a carcass off the side of the road and it had bacteria in it, particularly E. coli. If that dog's microbiome or their gut has a lot of good bacteria in it, it will competitively inhibit the ability of the E. coli to replicate within the gut. So we should be flooding our dog's guts every single day with healthy probiotics. So those are healthy bacteria that kind of create a good, healthy environment within the gut. And then you should be adding a prebiotic as well. And the prebiotic is a long-chain sugar that it can make its way through the hyperacidity of the stomach and gets all the way down into the colon and nourishes the probiotics. So again, whether you're feeding a kibble, you absolutely need to add a probiotic, because basically kibble is sterile. There's no bacteria at all. If you're feeding a raw diet, you're more likely that you're going to have some good bacteria, but you could also have some bad bacteria in as well. So again, you want to flood the gut with good bacteria. And does it matter whether it's a puppy or a senior? Absolutely not. I think it becomes super important in puppies, and that's why puppies that are nursing from their mother, as they're nursing, they're inoculating their gut with really good bacteria. But then we should be doing it in their food as well throughout their entire lives. What else is missing? So we've talked about the chondral protection. So we've talked about glucosamine, chondroitin, those sort of things. We've talked about healthy bacteria, but this is one that is really true to me, and I see a huge difference, and that is antioxidants. Antioxidants are super, super important for all life. And it's the reason that humans should eat fruits and vegetables, because brightly colored fruits and vegetables are really high in antioxidants. Oxidation is a normal part of metabolism that happens in our body every day. And it also happens in the body of our pets. And so dogs need to have antioxidants in their diet just like humans do. And so oxidation is where it produces these free radicals. And free radicals are molecules that bounce around, and they're corrosive and they damage healthy cells. And the way to get rid of those is antioxidants. Antioxidants bind to those free radicals and stop them from corroding and damaging tissue and damaging cells. The best place to get antioxidants are from brightly colored fruits and vegetables, also from omega-3 fatty acids. So why do we talk about oxidative stress in dogs so much? And if you've been really looking into it, it's a huge issue for dogs. Two reasons. One is because we tend to feed them pro-inflammatory diets. So everybody who's listening, I'm sure, will agree that dogs are carnivores, or at least in their ideal plain in nutrition, it would be a high meat diet. But we don't tend to feed them that way. We tend to feed them like we feed ourselves, with a lot of carbohydrates. So feeding a carnivore a high carbohydrate diet is very pro-inflammatory. So that's one, we feed way too many carbohydrates and we cause this pro-inflammatory state. The other is we tend to feed diets that are really low in antioxidants. So when you see this kibble that has an orange and a yellow, that's just food coloring. That is not antioxidants. So when you're feeding a kibble, all the antioxidants in that kibble have been damaged, if there were any in it from the beginning. Because antioxidants are phytonutrients that are very sensitive to heat. And so when you superheat a food, you're killing all the heat-liable vitamins and minerals as well as the antioxidants. So you should really be adding some antioxidants back into their diet. It really becomes an issue when a dog is older. So in humans, we see oxidative stress as graying to our hair and wrinkles to our skin and age spots. In dogs, we see it as graying to the ears and to the muzzle and to the eyes. We see graying to the lens of the eyes, so kind of those old dog eyes. That's all oxidative stress. Part of the reason that we see it so much in older dogs is because their natural endogenous production of antioxidants goes down as you age. So what happens when you're really subjected to oxidative stress? So you don't have a lot of antioxidants and you're feeding a really pro-inflammatory diet, you get all sorts of DNA damage to cells. And of course, that's going to cause cancers. You get even more inflammation throughout the body because we think of those corrosive molecules kind of bouncing around within their body. You get premature aging, so it's those Labradors that start turning gray when they're 5 and 6 years of age. You see it in cognitive disorders or dementia because the brain is very high lipids and high fat, and fat is much more free radicals are much more damaging to fatty organs. Respiratory issues, diabetes, so it affects the pancreas, autoimmune diseases, which is because of this kind of pro-inflammatory, inflammatory state within the body. So where do we get antioxidants? As I mentioned before with those older pets, we have two ways of getting antioxidants. One is what we produce within our body, so that's called endogenous antioxidants. The other is what we eat in our food. So vitamin C, for example, is considered essential in humans, that we have to get it from our food. But in pets and in animals, they're able to produce it within their body and their liver. They can also produce vitamin D from the exposure of the skin to UV light. Vitamin A can be converted from beta carotene. So there's a certain amount that we can produce within our body, but know that it goes down as we age. And so therefore, what we get in our diet is even more important. So why do we need to eat fruits and brightly colored vegetables? It's because that's a great dietary source of antioxidants, but you can also get antioxidant potential from polyunsaturated fatty acids like fish oils and krill and EPA and DHA. So superfoods are things that you really need to add to your dog's diet. And so it's cranberries and blueberries and broccolis and spinach. Certainly fish and spirulina and krill are all things that your dog is not getting it from that bag of brown kibble. And so you need to add antioxidants to their diet. It seems like, for sure, I'm kind of saying that in kibble, you absolutely aren't getting any antioxidants, 100%. In a raw diet, people tend to add in blueberries and berries, which are great. So those are antioxidants. The downfall is dogs are scavenger carnivores. So about 50% of dogs will eat fruits and vegetables and be fine with it. And about 50% of dogs are like, really, I'm not eating that. So that's where adding in like a superfood powder or concentrated superfoods become important, because you can add that into their diet and give them the antioxidants they need. But I think that the importance of superfoods is the difference between, if you fed a dog an apple, for example, an apple is going to have some antioxidants, but it also has a lot of fructose, a lot of natural fruit-based sugars, which is great. But if you can only feed a small amount of fruits and vegetables to a dog, which that's what it should be to be a species-appropriate diet, you really need to get the most bang for your buck. So you really want to add superfoods. They're truly superfoods, like blueberries and broccoli and fruits and vegetables that have a really high amount of antioxidants in it, because you can only feed a small percentage of your dog's diet as fruits and vegetables. And then, of course, when do they get it? They absolutely need it from the time they start eating normal food, all the way through their lifespan, but it becomes really important as they age. So in general, once dogs turn between 7 and 8 years of age, that's when their own endogenous antioxidants start to go down, so what they produce in their body. So it's imperative that we add more to their diets as they get older. So really important for older dogs to get more antioxidants, brightly colored fruits or vegetables, or a food that has high levels of antioxidants, or a supplement like Herb Smith Nutrients has really strong antioxidant potential. What else is missing? So we've talked about joint, we've talked about healthy bacteria, we've talked about antioxidants, but the last thing is healthy fats. And the healthy fats in general are the omega-3 fatty acids. So this is really a cool chart that describes kind of all the different fats. So you've got major fat, fat just generally as a big group, and then you have saturated fats and polyunsaturated fats. And the saturated fats tend to be the ones that we think of for heart disease and badness, and the unsaturated fats are the ones that we think of as good. So one component of that is the polyunsaturated fats, the omega-3s and the omega-6s. And it's super important that dogs get more omega-3. So omega-6s tend to be really abundant in our food as well as our pets' food. So omega-6s are corn oils and sunflower oil and canola oil, and they're a great source of dietary fat, but they're not a great source of EPA and DHA, which are the omega-3 fatty acids that help to decrease that pro-inflammatory state. So the best place that you can get omega-3 fatty acids are from fish, so salmon, and then grass-fed meats are really high in omega-3 fatty acids. And it's really about the ratio. So as I said before, omega-3 fatty acids are great for omega-6 fatty acids are great for providing this or providing a source of oil and of fat, but in excess, when there's too much of it, it becomes inflammatory or pro-inflammatory. And omega-3 fatty acids tend to be anti-inflammatory. And for dogs and cats, they need EPA and DHA, which are essential omega-3 fatty acids that in general you're going to be getting them from fish and from krill, from marine life, or from grass-fed meats. But they're considered essential because dogs don't make them on their own. So kibble, in general, has a really high ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. So kibble in general is anywhere from 1 part omega-6 to up to 1 part omega-3 to up to 20 to 40 parts omega-6. The optimal diet is between 1 to 5 or even better, a 1-to-1 ratio. So a human that tends to eat fast food has a omega-3 to omega-6 ratio of about 1 to 40, so really high pro-inflammatory oils. So whether you're feeding a kibble, with no question that you need to add some omega-3s, and let me explain that just a little bit more. Omega-3s, they're expensive, so that's one of the reasons you don't see it in a lot of pet foods, so it adds expense. The other is it is not very shelf stable, so it oxidizes and becomes rancid, and then you smell that kind of paint thinner kind of smell in your food. So most kibble manufacturers tend to avoid omega-3s because they're expensive and because they oxidize easily. So you absolutely need to use it. Use a fish oil, a salmon oil, a krill, some sort of omega-3 source if you're feeding a kibble. If you're doing a balanced raw, you can add in salmon and whitefish and add in some healthy fish to your dog's diet, which is fabulous. But then I would also still say, are you getting enough omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acids? And I would absolutely add more omega-3s. Where is it important in their stage of life? For puppies, it's how their brain develops and how their neurologic system develops. So if you want a smart dog, they should be getting DHA, the omega-3 that goes to the brain, a lot of them when they're young. DHA and EPA is also super important for the rest of the neurologic system as well as the skin and coat. And I found as a holistic vet that you can really look at, it's kind of, the coat is like a mirror to what's going on with inside of a dog. So if a dog's coat has a really dull color and is real dry, that means that they're not getting enough omega-3 and omega fatty acids. So for senior dogs, it's super important for brain health. So as older dogs start to develop cognitive decline and dementia, that's all kind of a normal aging process, but it can be slowed down by adding enough omega-3 that nourishes the brain. So these sorts of things I think are really necessary for your dog to be their best dog, and that's kind of our goal at Herbsmith, is what can we do to provide them with all the nutrition that they need on a daily basis. So let's start from the beginning. I've talked a number of times about species-appropriate proportions and species-appropriate diets. So number one, start with the best quality diet you can, and it needs to be species-appropriate, meaning that it should be higher meats and organ meats, and then smaller amounts of vegetables, and then the smallest amount of fruits, and potentially no grain or lower amounts of grain depending on the energy level of that dog. Then you start adding to that diet. And adding to that diet is going to be adding some sort of a joint protection. So we would have gotten it in the diet of the prey, but they're not getting it in a kibble. So we need to add a joint supplements like a glucosamine, chondroitin, hyaluronic acid. We also need to add healthy bacteria, because remember, all the bad bacteria are killed and also kills all the good bacteria. To curate their bowl, we're also going to add superfoods. So we're going to add brightly colored foods, fruits and vegetables, and some marine life, so krill or some sort of a fish. And then we're going to increase the omega-3 fatty acids in their diet so that we have more of a 1-to-1 ratio or a 1-to-5 ratio. And those things are necessary in any dog's diet. So to me, that's just the beginning. That a dog that is getting a shelf-stable food that's complete and balanced is great, but that's the bare minimum. Then you need to add, for a healthy dog, you need to add these other things to their diet so that they can maintain health. So I'm opening it up to any questions.
First question is, we actually got a few questions about it. What if I already add bone broth to my dog's bowl, or do you think that bone broth is enough as a source of glucosamine? What are your thoughts on that?
A bone broth is, so remember how bone broth is made. So you're taking these bones and you're boiling it and boiling it and boiling it, and you're getting some of the glucosamine and potentially some of the synovial fluid, so some hyaluronic acid, but you're also getting a lot of bone marrow and good calcium. But generally speaking, you're going to not be getting enough glucosamine. So I would also add glucosamine on top of that. But bone broth is great because it has so many nutrients in it. But I don't think that's enough to provide the amount of glucosamine that a dog needs every day. And I would also say that glucosamine is one of those things that you really need to do your math and make sure you're using a product that has enough. So for example, a dog should be getting anywhere from 500 milligrams to 2,000 milligrams every single day. And if you don't do the math on the product that you're using, you might not be giving enough. So just the presence of it doesn't mean anything. It has to be enough to make a difference.
When should I start adding more antioxidants?
Well, I think that is such a great question, because that question is kind of what we see in pets is when dogs are young and they're 2 and 3 and 4 years of age, they look great no matter what you feed them, right? You could feed them the worst food ever and they still look vibrant because at that point their body is producing enough antioxidants within their body. It really starts to show as they age. So that's when you see the effects of this chronic deficient nutritional program. And that's when it's super important to be adding antioxidants. So you absolutely need to start doing it from the time that they're kind of middle-aged. So depending on the size of the dog, 3, 4, 5 years of age. But to me, why wait that long? Why not start providing the antioxidants they need from their time they start eating healthy food or real food on? So to me, I say do it all the time and make it a part of your bowl, make it a part of the way that you produce their meal every day. But know that it becomes really, really important as they get older.
What is your superfood of choice?
I'm a blueberry person myself. So if you're thinking about real food, I just think that blueberries really pack a punch, that they have lots of antioxidants in it. And I would say my 2 is krill and blueberries. Those are like my absolute mainstays. And then I would add some other things into it, but I think that those in small volumes give you the most benefit in the smallest amount that you have to give.
Excellent. And something that you've told me before is that you need to be giving antioxidants daily, right? It's not just one day of the week.
Yeah, and you got to think of it that way, in that what is oxidation? Oxidation is part of our normal and your pet's normal metabolism. So every day, every minute, every hour, this production of free radicals is developing. So if you bolus it, so you give all the antioxidants in the morning, then it's going to clean up all the free radicals, because that's what it does. And then towards the end of the day, all the antioxidants are kind of used up and you still get free radicals developing. So for me, I love it that it's in every single meal. And so if you're feeding twice a day, you're feeding a bolus of antioxidants in the morning that kind of holds them till the afternoon. Then you feed your evening meal with antioxidants, and that gives another boost of it to get rid of any free radicals that have developed throughout the evening. And that is just this constant steady state of adding antioxidants that are getting rid of these free radicals that are just a normal part of metabolism within the body.
Excellent. Love a superfood.
And if you can do it as treats, that's always a great way too. So adding like a, sweet potato treat is the orange color is beta carotene, and that adds antioxidants. So kind of the way I think of everything that you put into your dog's body should have a purpose. And so if you can feed, I guess I would liken it to the difference between a potato chip and blueberries. So a potato chip is going to give you energy and fat, and a blueberry is going to give you energy as well as antioxidants, and which is a better choice for what you're putting into your body.
What about cats? And actually, we're going to be doing a webinar on how to curate the bowl for a healthier cat next month. So if you check your email or check out on social, we will have an invite to that, and we can jump all into that one.
Yeah, I think cats are a really great question because we know that cats are obligate carnivores, and they absolutely need to have meat and organs as a high percentage of their diet. And to me, that's where superfoods become even more important. That we see oxidative stress in kitties, so you see the graying eyes, you see graying muzzles, not quite as much as you do in dogs, but you still see it, which says to me that they still need some superfoods. And how would they normally get it? They would eat the gut contents of that bird that was eating berries all day. So I think that it becomes even more important in cats because to be a species appropriate diet, they eat less and less amount of kind of pre-digested fruits or vegetables.